And so once again, welcome. My name is Tammy Lesso. I'm a coordinator in academic affairs in the College of Engineering, and I'll be moderating today's panel on careers in life sciences and biomedical. Our panel discussion today is designed to highlight not only the careers of our panelists, but also to provide students with advice on launching their careers, provide perspective on the transition from college to career, as well as insights into the industry. Before we get started, I also just want to take a minute to acknowledge the staff that are represented on the call today. So Lisa Quasmanen, Career Education Specialist in the URI Career Center, as well as Christy Embrecht-Searles, also from the Center for Career and Experiential Education, are on the call with us today. Holly Hernandez from the Career Center as well could not make it to today's panel, but she's been instrumental in helping us coordinate these events. And then the last announcement that I want to make is that we will be taking any questions from the students. If you have a question for our panelists, please add it to the chat feature. We'll be getting to your questions after we get through the questions for the panelists. We ask that students just remain muted throughout the program. Okay, so let's introduce our panelists. I'm very excited today. We have three amazing women on the panel. First, Jessica Ferris, Manufacturing Compliance Manager from Bristol Myers Squibb. Also with us today is Megan Fusco, Principal Validation Engineer from Amgen. And then Grace Santilli, Manufacturing Associate from ThermoFisher Scientific. So welcome, panelists. We're so happy that you're here today. What we're going to do to start out is ask our panelists to tell us a little bit about yourselves, give a brief overview of your company, what your company does, and also if you could just provide a little bit of background in terms of what your role is at your company. So let's start off with Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace. I graduated from URI the past May with chemical engineering and a business minor, and I now work at ThermoFisher. The company itself is really broad, but we have a sector of the business devoted towards pharma services. So the group that I work in, we work in a GMP clean room setting, and we manufacture the drug for muscular dystrophy. So every day is different, but for the most part, we're in what's called the suites in the GMP setting, and we're manufacturing this pharmaceutical. So we use GMPs, we use clean room behaviors, and it's more of the pharmaceutical side of engineering.
Great, thank you so much. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into what you do as a manufacturing associate. So I'm excited to hear about those details about your job as well. Let's move on to Jessica Ferris.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I work for Bristol Myers Squibb in Devens, Massachusetts. So that's about 45 minutes north of Worcester, near Leominster, Fitchburg, about an hour east of Boston, west of Boston. And Bristol Myers Squibb is focused on innovative medicines and therapies over serious diseases. So the company, like ThermoFisher, is very, very broad, but is is focused mostly on sort of those serious conditions that don't really have any cures or treatments. My role is manufacturing compliance manager. So again, I sit at Devens. Devens is growing quite rapidly. And on our site, we have commercial manufacturing, clinical manufacturing, and are building a new cell therapy building, which I'm sure I'll get into. My role is focused on our commercial manufacturing, and my team is focused on writing and investigating when things go wrong. So when there's issues on the floor, deviations from our approved process, my team is responsible for really looking into what went wrong and how to stop it from ever happening again. So I have 5 people that report into me. They really do all the chunk of the work, but I'm managing that team. So I graduated from URI in 2009, and I majored in microbiology and marine biology. So I work on a team now full of engineers. I like to hide the fact that I'm not an engineer, but I've sort of morphed myself into this engineering organization, and I really enjoy it. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jessica. I love your career trajectory, because that's, part of the conversation that we have a lot with our students is it's not always a straight line to where you end up with your career. So it's interesting to see how people get to where they are. Yeah, so Megan, take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. This is a great opportunity. I wish that we had things like this many years ago when I graduated. So I'm a 1996 grad from the chemical engineering. I have been at the manufacturing facility that I work at for 25 years. It's the first job I got out of college. I've had many jobs at this particular manufacturing facility. At this point, it's Amgen. So prior to Amgen in 2002, it was several other companies, but I've been working for Amgen since 2002. I'm a process development validation engineer. What I do is I write test protocols and I identify things that I need to look at for the processes that we make, the drugs that we make. And I run these, I execute these protocols, I gather all this data, and I write it up, and I get to send it to regulatory agencies like the FDA, and they get to review it and ask me as many questions as they want to, and come and inspect us. And I get to sit with them and answer questions again. And my job is to make sure that the process is consistent and reliable and repeatable, and that we're always meeting our product quality. At Amgen, we make monoclonal antibodies and some fusion proteins for different indications, oncology. Maybe you've seen our commercials for Enbrel on TV. We make Enbrel right here in West Greenwich, Rhode Island. We also make a drug for cholesterol, Repatha, and we're up to about 13 drugs here on site, and we just finished construction and have made our first drug in our new facility, our manufacturing of the future facility, which relies heavily on just this flexible manufacturing type of equipment setup.
Great. Just a quick question, follow-up question for you, Megan. You said a future facility. Is that future facility in West Greenwich?
It is. So we have that facility staffed, and we expect as more drugs get identified to be manufactured in that facility that we would staff up.
Wow, that's great. It's great for us.
It is. It's great for us too.
So I'm going to actually jump back to Grace and ask Grace if you could just spend a couple of minutes for the students that are on the call today and describe what a day in the life of your job is like.
So we start out with a morning meeting, which is a shift exchange. So the night shift tells us what they did the previous night and then what's left on the agenda for us. So after our morning meeting, where we go over any safety incidents or special notes or tasks that we have to do, and we split them up, then we go into the suites, and it varies depending on how production is going. If production is ramping up, we go in, and I work in the downstream section. So the sections at ThermoFisher are divided up into buffer prep, upstream, downstream, and drug product. And I'll just overview those quick. Buffer formulates all the buffers and media we use. And then upstream is the cell culture part of the production itself. So they use media and they build up this large amount of cells, and we use viral vector processing. So they infect this certain virus and they grow it, and then they take out the harmful part of the virus and replace it with the good gene. So they build up this media, and then it passes to us in downstream, and we use a series of purification processes to take out the cellular debris that we don't need. And then, so we purify about 500 or 600 kilograms of media down into one little bag. That's about like 15 kilograms. So I like that part of it. And then it goes to drug product, and they're responsible for filling the vials and packaging it. So when we're not processing, it varies. There's certain other tasks that we're allowed to do to expand within ThermoFisher. So I'm on the ambassador team. So we do fun events for the ThermoFisher site to increase morale and have more of a sense of community. And then also on the talent workstream team. So I took my experience of being stressed trying to find a job out of college towards helping others find their foot in the door. So that's a little bit about what I do day to day. It varies. I help write documentation sometimes when we're doing a tech transfer and starting a new product. So they have a really good setup of helping you know what your career goals is, and then having bi-weekly meetings to make sure you're on track to those goals.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's wonderful to hear that there's some guidance too in terms of career trajectory in the company and keeping everybody engaged. And obviously they want to keep the talent. So that's a good investment for their staffing. So that was a wonderful overview, Grace. I appreciate that detail. I'm sure our students do as well. And perhaps we can go to Jess, and if you can, talk a little bit to our student attendees about what they might expect if they enter into an entry-level job with Bristol Myers.
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of different entry-level opportunities across the entire site and obviously across the entire organization. The majority of our entry-level positions are in manufacturing, similar to what Grace described, and also our laboratory, which is where I started. So I started in our quality control microbiology lab, testing samples that came off the manufacturing floor, going out to the manufacturing facility, taking water and facility samples and testing those back in the lab. So a lot of our entry-level positions are focused in the labs or manufacturing. But BMS has come a long way since I started. We've developed a lot of different opportunities for internships and co-ops while students are in school to kind of get experience under your belt. So you have the opportunity to come into potentially a little higher experienced role. But I think one of the more important programs that we put in place is called the Kickstart Rotational Program. And this is actually very popular for engineers who have graduated with a Bachelor of Science from an undergrad program. And this allows students to come in and get 8-month rotations in 3 different functional areas, totaling to about 2 years. And then after that, the company helps place you into a full-time role that fits with your passions and our needs. So, you know, between all of the entry-level positions that are offered in upstream and downstream manufacturing in both our clinical and our commercial facilities, we have our cell therapy building coming online next year. There will be a lot of entry-level positions in their manufacturing facility as well. And then the labs and the giant support system that the labs have. There's quality control, microbiology, chemistry focused, environmental monitoring, and utility sampling entry-level positions that are often available as well. So between all of those, we're almost constantly hiring entry-level positions. And then on top of that, having the rotational program for graduating seniors has really sort of diversified the types of roles that we can take in.
Just I want to ask a follow-up question on the Kickstart Rotational Program.
Sure.
Is that running? Is that being advertised?
Yeah, so it should be posted to Handshake
Okay.
as an entry-level position, and can also be found on our careers website. It is very competitive. We are opening, so our first round of Kickstart Rotational had 3 students. I think we're working up to 9, but we have 6 right now.
Okay.
They're going through the selection process for the next round, but I believe that around sometime in the summer they'll be posting for the following cohort. So I believe the plan is to start the next cohort in the fall. So but yes, those should be posted and available and advertised as a rotational program for graduating seniors. It's a full-time position. It's listed as a full-time entry-level position.
Great. It's good to know. And Megan, how about you? An opportunity to describe if a student is going to Amgen for a career, what can they expect to be working on when they first start?
I can say, when I first started, just like Grace, I started in manufacturing in the suites on the floor, and and I would always recommend getting that hands-on experience, because it's definitely going to aid you as you move on into different roles, whether it's in engineering or development or quality. To be able to touch the equipment and get your grounding is invaluable. At Amgen, we have a huge like mentoring program. So there are several new hires that I mentor, and mid-level folks that I mentor and coach. And we've got also some great employee resource groups that we encourage folks to join. It helps you engage with people that you wouldn't normally engage with in your day-to-day work job. And the more networking you do across the company, the faster you can get things done, because you figure out who you need to talk to get things done. But similar to what Jess said, there is a rotational program that you can get hired into. Again, it's very, very competitive, and that's useful. You spend so many months in one position, you rotate into 3 positions in total, and then you have a landing spot. But within that program, we have some very distinct ambassadorships and mentors as well. And actually, in addition to mentoring new hires, we have an ambassador program for new hires. And that could be something as simple as, maybe you're from out of state and you don't know where to find the best dry cleaner, or you need a new doctor or something like that. So especially for someone like me who hasn't moved very far, I always have advice for my new hires.
So we'll stay with you, Megan, on this next question, but what advice would you give current students when they're transitioning from college to career?
I would definitely seek out a mentor, and probably the best way to do that when you first join a company is ask around, ask on your team, ask your manager or your direct supervisor. And it doesn't have to be the same person all the time for all particular questions you have or roles that you have. The faster you get hooked up with a mentor or a coach, there's a little difference between a mentor and a coach. A coach is great because they can just tell you what you need to know, without all of the logistics around a mentorship. So yeah, definitely a coach or a mentor, someone that can help you understand what's out there for you. And even though you may only be with the company for like a few weeks or a month, start your 5-year plan, decide where you want to go next, and ask a lot of questions. I think that once you start talking to people, they're very willing to share, very willing to share their career paths. and don't be so, I call it zigzagging. Don't be so concerned about a straight line up to the top. Feel free to zigzag through your career. It's a great opportunity to round yourself out and learn a lot of different skills. Make yourself very marketable.
Yeah, I love that. I also love the advice on have goals. Like, even though you just landed your first job,
Yep.
still have some goals, still, and still seek ways to pursue them. So great advice. Jessica, what kind of advice would you have?
I'm a zigzagging pro. So I echo that sentiment. Absolutely. My and my biggest piece of advice around that is related. Certainly keep an open mind. I sit on the university relations team at Bristol Myers Squibb, and we visit a lot of schools, or did visit a lot of schools. Now we do virtually. And I think, some of the number one things we hear are people searching exactly what they want to do in the search bar on the jobs website, and then they complain because they can't find it. I'm like, well, we call it something different. So keep an open mind, try and use keywords, and don't be afraid to do something that isn't maybe what you envisioned yourself doing. Coming out of school, out of my undergrad, I was convinced I was going back to school. I'm going to go get my master's. I'm going to get my PhD. I love academia. I'm going to stay here, do research. This is what I really love to do. But I'm just going to get a job while I'm searching for the right program. And so I, got this entry-level position, microbiology job at a local lab. And here I am 12 years later, absolutely loving what I do. So please, don't lock yourself, have a 5-year plan. Don't lock yourself into it. Be open to whatever may come your way. Listen to your mentors. They're, they have a lot to offer. And certainly have your own mind, but keep it open. Keep it open to whatever possibilities may come in front of you. I like I said, I echo the zigzagging, and you may find yourself in a position that in college, 1, you never even knew existed, and 2, you never even pictured yourself in. But I'll tell you that's how I got myself here today is jumping into roles like that. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice. Yep.
Keeping an open mind. Yeah, I hope everybody that's on the call heard that, because it's a really great advice. And Grace, I know that you probably have some wonderful advice for our students.
I definitely agree with what Megan and Jess were just saying. That definitely helps you out and helps you figure out what you like. It might be going through a list of things every time you try something you don't like it, but at least you narrow down that list of helping you align your goals. But to add something, I think that having a network really helps you into these entry-level positions. It's kind of difficult to get your foot in the door or receive feedback, like applying to lots of jobs, not hearing back. It's discouraging, but I think a way to get around it is by reaching out. I think URI has a really good sense of community, because graduates are always willing to help other URI grads, and it may be uncomfortable to reach out to people, but it definitely helps, and they will be happy to help, or at least have a conversation and help you figure out a path.
And I just want to add something onto that too, because our alumni network, I mean, look at who we have on the panel, right? Our alumni network is vast in the College of Engineering and at the university. But importantly, our alumni are so willing to give back, and especially to current students. There's, I think, an incredible value that our alumni put into being able to give back to current students and to share that insight and to share their experiences, just as this whole week has really demonstrated that with these lunch and learn panels. Many of our panelists, the majority of them were alumni. So really take advantage of your alumni, network with them, and consider them on your team in terms of your career search. So thank you for that wonderful advice. And Grace, I'm going to go right back to you since you were the last one, but I know that I think you were we were in the middle of this pandemic, right? When you were really conducting your job search. So can you talk a little bit about how you've transitioned into your full-time job in the middle of this pandemic and how it has affected how you do your job every day and what it looks like for the future?
So biotech is a really good place to be right now. There's so many places that are actively hiring throughout this pandemic, which is something that's fortunate about this whole situation. But it hasn't really changed the way that my facility has been working because we're considered essential workers due to us making a vaccination or an immunization. So the only difference is us wearing masks and daily temperature checks and weekly testing is available. And there's reduced capacity in the office space, but since we're in the manufacturing room and we're in the cleanest space possible, it hasn't really affected us that much.
That's great.
I'm glad it hasn't.
I know. It's wonderful. The key word is adaptability, and that has been pretty much the key word across the board for many of our employers. But Jessica, can you enlighten us in how BMS has handled this?
Yeah, so last February, at the beginning of February, I left all my colleagues at work and went on maternity leave. And little did I know, I will not have seen them in person for over a year. So, I didn't really go through the same journey as my coworkers of kind of like having the pandemic and all, there's all these changes and they're going through it together. And so many people are working from home and learning that mentality together. I kind of had to come back in June to people who are already used to that and pick that up. So that was unique. My job specifically has been 100% work from home. At the end of the summer, we tried to start rotating in, but it didn't last long. So I really only got on site a couple days and didn't see many people. So we are a manufacturing facility. So to Grace's point, we do have many manufacturing personnel who are continuing their day-to-day as normal, but our office for the most part is closed. People can go in on an ad hoc basis. So, my team being responsible for some of the larger investigations on our site, sometimes there is a need to get on the manufacturing floor and see what happened and talk directly to the operators. And we do encourage that. But it's certainly not an everyday occurrence. And me being more in the management role, I'm certainly not needed to go on site. So it's been work from home. It is a big adjustment for people. BMS has recognized that and how burnout looks different when you're working from home and the balances that people have in place or have to put in place or try to put in place during this really unique time. BMS has offered reimbursement for work from home materials. They have put in place different policies to help us have days of rest or quiet hours where we're limited in meetings or have the day to sort of recollect ourselves, relax with our families, which has been really nice. We took the crazy year last year into account when doing year-end reviews and conversations with our folks, and that could really, the year that we had could really have an impact on people's performance. And so we took that into account as well. But I am happy to say that the company in general really hasn't had to modify our goals or objectives all that much, that we've been successful in maintaining our productivity goals and what we want to do as a company and driving forward to even more innovative medicine. So while we've had to do things a lot differently and it looks a lot differently, our end game has remained the same.
Quiet hours, I love that.
Yeah,
My colleagues on the call are all like,
yeah.
Quiet hours.
Quiet Friday afternoon. So after this, actually have like an afternoon to work and focus with no meeting. So it's actually very nice.
Yeah, I think that's so necessary because we've all plunged into this and with no real structure, right? To our days. And so we see our office desks in our living room and we're more, we're so compelled to just keep working because it's right there. And I just love that idea of quiet hours. So for my colleagues at URI that are on the call, let's powwow after this and talk about quiet hours. But I'm going to ask Megan to follow up with some insight into how Amgen is working with this pandemic.
I actually had a very unique opportunity. I hired a new person during the pandemic, and we were, we were ready to send out that offer letter, and we had a hiring freeze, mostly due to the pandemic, to kind of regroup and reassess our numbers and things like that. So the luckiest person in the whole world, like they actually waited. So I was so fortunate that they were willing to wait, and hired them in like August. But they're sitting in North Carolina. They're there. They're virtually working, like I'm working right here from Wakefield. So it's hard to, it's a challenge to build a team. So I take time in our team meetings, like the first few minutes, we do like these icebreakers, and we start these conversations like, what was your favorite vacation you've ever been on? Or, did you play sports in high school? Or, just really to try to get to know each other, because we have completely missed out on those, I call them the coffee conversations, like around the water cooler, like the casual bump into each other and have those great conversations and just get to know each other. So we have to create those moments. So that's something that we do in our staff meetings. And the other thing that Amgen started to do, which is great, it's called Random Coffee. And it's this program, and it sets you up randomly with somebody that you don't know. And you get a name and you set up a meeting with them, could be like a half hour, and you have coffee and you just get to know each other. And what that does is it helps start to build those networks and build those relationships. And when we're working from home, we're all by ourselves, we don't have a chance to meet new people or interact or have that social interaction. So it helps to force those moments, and that's kind of what we're doing.
I love that. And I also know for a fact that it was nice because I know personally a student that landed an internship with Amgen for the summer and was concerned that he was going to lose the internship, and Amgen beautifully pivoted to still allow summer interns. He was remote, but he had a great experience. And the cherry on top for him was I was actually offered a full-time position with Amgen for when he graduates. And so we were thrilled to see that capability to still accommodate summer interns and absolutely provide them with an amazing experience. So that's wonderful. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and again, Megan, since you were the last one, I'm going to throw this one out to you. Can you talk about what Amgen's goals are around diversity, equity, and inclusion?
It's top number one goal. Like our number one goal is safety, right? All our staff have to remain safe, so that's definitely the foremost. But diversity, inclusion, and belonging is a huge part of our goals. I personally belong to, I actually belong to several ERGs. There are employee resource groups. We have We Too, which is Women Empowered to Be Exceptional. It's our women's group. You don't have to be a specific gender to join. You can join We Too. We have an international international group. We have a Black employee network. Yeah, we have a ton of ERGs, and we meet together as a larger network. Right now, we have some activities going on for Women's History Month. We have speakers come in, keynote speakers, all virtual right now. One of my favorite things we're doing right now is we're nominating women in our life that have empowered us or been good role models. So we have a tree. It's a virtual tree, and your name goes up on the tree. So it's very, very nice. And we have some raffles coming up next week and things like that. So that's wonderful. It's a place that you'll find a network where you can meet people that are like you and meet people that aren't like you at all. And that is, it's amazing. We also have this group. So Amgen Rhode Island, our acronym is ARI. And we have a group called Life at ARI. It sounds a lot like what Grace was alluding to, like to try to improve morale on site and whatnot. And then they're the ones that do all the fun things and hand out all the swag and the t-shirts and coffee cups and things like that, like all the fun stuff. So yeah, it works in that way too. It's important that when you are interviewing, if you put an interview panel together, that interview panel needs to be diverse. Mm-hmm. Because I use a phrase, and when I'm working with younger girls, she has to see you to be you. So you need to see yourself represented, to see that you're going to belong in that company, that you're going to belong in that group or department. So it's important to have a diverse interview group. It's important to have diverse teams when solving problems. You're always going to get to the best solution if you have a diverse group and not just a bunch of people that all think the same.
Great. I love it. Jess, how about at Bristol Myers?
Yeah, I think my answer is really similar to Megan's. Mm-hmm. You know, we call them people and business resource groups. Sounds very similar to the employee business groups. And again, we encourage anyone to join any group. It's not meant to segregate people. It's meant to promote inclusion and a sense of belonging. So our BOLD group, Black Organization for Leadership and Development, Be Now, our Bristol Myers Squibb network of women, OLA, Organization for Latino Achievement. So we have a number of them, right? And always putting on fun events and events that help teach you about different backgrounds and culture. And they like incorporate the PBRGs will team up with the CAF, and they'll bring like really yummy ethnic food to our lunches, which is my favorite part. So you know, those obviously help promote a culture of inclusion on site. But I think even more seriously, BMS has incorporated diversity metrics and objectives into our company performance. So you know, Megan spoke to having diverse interview panels. Not only do we encourage that, we require it. So we have metrics around diverse interview panels and ensuring that we have not only a diverse candidate pool, but a diverse pool of interviewers who are screening the candidates. And we have hard numbers around that. We also have hard numbers around the percentage of women in upper management. So, you know, my level is like intermediate management, but the company, and I think the industry in general, sees a sharp decline in the number of women in management roles in levels above mine. And so the company is taking initiatives to ensure that we're promoting women into those upper management and senior management levels. And the more, as Megan said, the more people that we have in those roles, the more it encourages women who are at lower roles in the organization to be motivated to get up to those roles. So, you know, we're trying to promote a culture of those women role models. we have a diversity and inclusion site lead. So there's someone on our site who is ensuring that we are incorporating diversity and inclusion into everything that we do, and that's always considered. And then we also just have a global diversity and inclusion group that's their job, is focused on ensuring that our company is prioritizing this, right up with safety. Sound very similar to Amgen's values. So very similar. And yeah, I think it's important that we're seeing themes of diversity and inclusion at big companies like these. Amgen, ThermoFisher, Bristol Myers Squibb, we are leading the way. So we need to be the role models for some of the other companies to say that this is the way that you do things. And it's proven that you will be more productive if you include diverse teams in everything that you do.
So well said. Very, very nice. And it's so wonderful to hear, especially for our students, the fact that when they leave URI, and URI right now is going through a campus climate survey, and it's so nice to know that when they leave URI, that the processes and the procedures that are in place already when they land their roles in your organization. So wonderful. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit because we're almost at 12:45. So we want to allow us a little bit of time for our students to ask some questions. But I'm going to go to Grace. What was significant about your education at URI that supported your career?
I think capstone was a really big part. I work in a team setting right now, and in these capstone groups, when you're solving this big problem with a group, I don't know if you choose teams or what the current standard is for those teams, but it really helps you learn how to be a productive group member, and it also helps you in the interview process because they always ask what's a challenge you had, and there's definitely lots of challenges within the capstone project where it helps you overcome this big project by breaking it down, and having this team group setting, it gave me an edge in interviewing, and everyone is interested by it. So they ask questions, and it helps you kind of set yourself apart from other interviewers.
So for the students on the call, capstone, and what we try to emphasize is that capstone is reflective of real world experience. So in capstone, you're working in those teams. In capstone, you're presented with a challenge. And like Grace mentioned, this is a great talking point for interviewing because our recruiters are interested in what you were doing at capstone, but also how did you overcome those challenges? So, what were they and how did you overcome them? So it was a great experience. And we try to talk about that all the time, Grace, with our students in terms of building their resumes, really talking about their capstone experience on their resumes. So that was great. Megan, how about you? What was significant about your education at URI?
I'll tell you about my experience at URI. I had a job on campus. I used to answer the phones and work in the office at talent development. And that experience working in that office, working with that staff, and then working with the students in talent development, being able to see them, interact with them on a daily basis, it gave me insight to students that aren't in engineering. I think that it's easy to sit in engineering, take your classes, take your physics and your chemistry and your calculus, and not really move out of that space. So if you are maybe you're in the IEP program, or maybe you're in the you have a second major or something like that where you do get to interact with other students, I think that's great. But yeah, sometimes you get really sequestered in this little engineering group, and now that you've got that amazing, gorgeous building, you guys have to leave it every once in a while. So I have to say that hands down was when I have my amazing memories of URI. It's in Taft Hall, and it's having those having those interactions in Taft Hall. I wouldn't give it up for the world.
That's great. Taft Hall is still there,
Good.
still houses TD. They did go through it and renovate it a little bit, which was nice because it needed a little sprucing up. And Jess, how about you? What was instrumental about your education at URI?
Yeah, so for the educators on here, your academics are very important. But I think, to Grace and Megan's point, it's more about the experience than the education. It's first of all the people. So do not discount the connections that you make in college, in the friends that you make and the people that you meet. Graduation is not goodbye. I said my goodbyes, and 12 years later, I'm married to my husband, who graduated with me, lived with me senior year. We were not together. Two of my mom tribe, as I like to call them, we sort of have gone through the same journey with our children. We're both some of my best friends at URI. So I'm still very connected to these people who support me in everything I do, not just my career. And I like to think that I couldn't do it without them. And so I owe URI for those connections. In management, in URI, I was president of the Student Alumni Association. So shout out to any students who are part of that group. I have my fondest memories being part of the Student Alumni Association, but being president of that organization senior year was really a good some good insight into what management does and how to manage a big group of people and delegate and work with diverse backgrounds and diverse viewpoints and people who have differing viewpoints than you. Being put in uncomfortable situations and having to reach out to people that you've never ever spoken to before, and you're not really sure what you're doing, but you're just going to go have this conversation and try and figure it out. And so that, that experience was really instrumental, I think, in teaching me more of the management side of things. So it's really in the experiences you have and the people you meet, and while your education and your academics are really important, and how you manage those, right? Self-discipline, everything you learn through academics is all really important. Please do not push aside the people that you meet and the experiences that are available to you.
It's wonderful advice. I really appreciate all of that. And I know our students do as well. And I love the key themes too about making those connections, diversifying, going into areas that you might not be familiar with. Maybe that means joining an organization and you're not sure about it. Take the leap, try it, and really don't look back. You won't have any regrets. So I love that. And this hour has flown by. We have about 10 minutes left. So I really want to open up this time to our student guests and tell them that now is a great time to put questions into the chat. You have 3 remarkable people on the panel from 3 really amazing companies that hire heavily URI students. So please take this time to throw some messages into the chat and ask them those questions that you are really interested in asking them. And while we wait for students to type in some questions, I do have a question just to start out the panel. Hang on, we got one coming in. Let me just check it because it might be yep, it was what I was going to ask. So Erin is asking, would you recommend pursuing a higher degree after undergraduate or going directly into the workforce? And this is exactly the question that I was going to ask, because this has come up on every single panel this week. So let me start with Megan. What is your advice on this?
Actually, there's been so many advances in online schooling that just come to work. And a lot of companies have tuition reimbursement programs. So it's almost like, why would you not want to work? And then, take your classes part-time and go ahead and do that. Now, if there was something very specific, hands-on, like you were studying ocean engineering and you needed to be on a boat for 6 months or something like that, I mean, by all means, you go get your advanced degree. But in general, I think that it makes plenty sense to come work and find out what you really are interested in. You may find out, like, everyone's all like, I got to get my MBA. And you're like, really? Do you? Like, do you really? Or maybe you decide that, you thought you wanted your master's in, some chemical engineering field. And then you really decide that, no, you really are interested in something completely different. Like I am still trying to, learn as much as I can about biology and cell biology, because I'm an engineer and I'm supposed to be growing cells and I don't really know how that works. So that's if I went and got my master's in pure engineering, I might not get what I'm looking for.
Great advice. Jess, anything you want to add to that?
I agree. Do both. Go to work, make them pay for it, find what you're interested in, and go back for something that will really apply to what you want to be doing. You won't know that until you start working. I did go back for my master's in biopharmaceutical leadership. I got a master's of science, and I'm really glad I did that, but that's definitely not the program that I would have taken if I had just chosen right after graduation. So go work, see how you want to apply what you want to learn. And then, there's tuition reimbursement and online programs.
Great. Grace, anything that you want to add to that? I wasn't sure if you were thinking about pursuing an advanced degree or not.
I started part-time just because it's online, so it's easy, and I want to shift away from manufacturing, but I guess I went through that same struggle of, do I go into school? I guess unless you have a clear-cut goal that, yes, I want this PhD and I want to do this, it doesn't hurt to just go in and see what you like and find an education that shifts towards that, because it can help you use it as a ladder to get to where you want to go. But I agree with what was already said in terms of education and that.
Fantastic. I'm going to keep you on the spot, Grace, because we have another question that came in from Anna. And she asked, what traits are important for an engineer to possess to be successful in the industry? I love this question.
Well, I'm not an engineer, so I can speak from experience of looking at the engineers I work with. I think that you have to be hardworking and willing to find a challenge that may kind of deter others. I think that the engineers who are set apart is they're looking for continuous improvement and finding out how to achieve that.
Great. And Jess, any recommendations?
So I'm also not an engineer, but I do manage engineers, and probably the number one thing that we work on is like those people skills, the communication, the presentation skills. I don't want to offend any engineers on here, but there are a lot of engineers who do continue their education and continue to be kind of in academics for many, many years. And graduate without really having seen the real world and go into these, they're not entry-level positions or levels that are a little higher up, and there's a lot expected of them. And they can't translate how smart they are, like what's going on in their brain, into plain talk for people like me. And that's really important, to be able to translate the workings of your brain into something that your management or an auditor could understand. So, those like soft skills, those people skills and communication skills are probably the number one thing that I would say to work on, to round out sort of that like book smart that you guys are learning, because I work with so many smart people, but we still have so much to work on with those soft skills. So that's what I would say.
And I'm going to let Megan add in anything else that she has.
Jess nailed it. She absolutely nailed it.
Right.
Like I didn't realize how much writing I would do in my in my career. I write a lot, and back to communication. I actually was invited to a meeting a few weeks ago specifically to translate engineering blah, blah, blah into quality speak, because I spent so many years in the quality organization. I'm able to connect the two and distill that really scientific, data-driven descriptions into words that people can understand. Because when you have an FDA auditor in front of you, they might not be an engineer, they could be a chemist, and you have to be able to explain it to them in a way that is like real world, regular words. So yeah, absolutely. If you have that gift, just tap into that.
And I just want to summarize as well. Across the week, we have had this question come up, and across the week, it has been consistently the skill or the trait to have to be successful in your career is communication skills. So that has been the one trait, and I see Christy nodding her head. That is the one trait that has been consistent across the week. All of our panelists have said communication skills are key to your success in your career. And so I just want,
sorry, Tammy, just to interrupt. And I think that's why we all talked about experiences that are outside of the classroom, because you're not going to learn that in the classroom, really. You may do a presentation or two, but participating in those sort of like extracurricular or where you're going to find that development.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot about, becoming an orientation leader or a tour guide or things like that. And these are all opportunities that are available on the campus. So we had one more question come in, and I'm going to have one panelist answer this question because we are getting close to 1 o'clock. But the question from Melissa is, what would you say makes a person stand out when looking through applications for internships or a job? So Jessica, you look at a lot of applications, right?
Yeah, like I said, I sit on the university relations team for Bristol Myers Squibb. So we talk to a lot of college students and answer this question quite a bit. It's hard when you're applying for an internship or a co-op. The expectation is that you're not coming in with work experience, right? So what separates you from someone else? You're all taking classes. We know that. You can put the list of your classes, but that's not really it. What we are looking for is that you've shown the ability to work on teams. Have you been part of a large project team? Have you led that project team? That's even better, right? That you've been able to demonstrate that you can work with people from diverse backgrounds with different learning styles, that you can communicate out, that you can summarize your findings, present to folks that maybe you're unfamiliar with or that are unfamiliar with the content. Have you had leadership experience? What have you led? Have you were you a shift lead at the grocery store? Perfect, right? That there's some sort of leadership experience that you stood out amongst other employees that led you to become a shift lead at the grocery store. And there's certain skills that does require that will translate into different industries. It doesn't seem applicable, but it is. And so keep an eye out for like those leadership opportunities, those teamwork opportunities, even if they seem small and not applicable. I guarantee that they are more than you think. If you are applying for a full-time job, any hands-on experience you have, if you had an internship, if you had a co-op, harp on that, because any hands-on experience, just that you had your foot in the door in this industry, just so you get it. That's what we're looking for with full-time opportunities. So if you have that opportunity as an undergrad to get in a lab or get on a manufacturing floor just to see it for a few months, take advantage of that.
That's fantastic and wonderful advice. Love all the information on that leadership experience. We talk about that a lot and how that's such valuable experience just in general, but it's also highly sought after by our recruiters. So it is 1 o'clock straight up. So we have to unfortunately end our conversation here, but I can't say it enough that this has been a wonderful meetup with our alumni / panelists, experts out in the field. Just a reminder, we still have one more event tonight at 5:30. career conversations. There are still some slots open to meet with employers. And if you want to get on Handshake and see what's available out there, this is it, 5:30. So please check Handshake. I want to say a special thank you to our panelists. We could not do this week or this panel without you. We really appreciate your accepting the invitation and being here and spending an hour with us, and actually a little more than an hour with us. And a special thanks to the Career Center staff for supporting this panel, as well as everything that's happened this week. It's been a wonderful ride. And to the students that joined us today, thank you so much for spending time out of your busy day to be here and to learn from our panelists. We really appreciate your spending the hour with us as well. So with that, I'm going to say thank you once more. And please, everyone, have a safe and a wonderful day and an amazing weekend. Take care, everyone.